On the edge of town stood a weathered sign. "Welcome to Greystone, where everyone stays." Someone had scrawled beneath it in black marker, "Because no one wants to leave." Maya Collister never wanted to come to Vermont. 26 years old, Chicago-born, a crime scene photographer who had seen things most people only encountered in nightmares, and had learned to keep her hands steady and her face blank while the shutter clicked. But 3 years ago, she had seen something that no amount of professional detachment could erase. A room, 6 people seated in a perfect circle, hands clasped together, all dead. No signs of struggle, no forced entry, no explanation that held up under scrutiny. What never made it into the official case file, what Maya deleted from her own camera roll at 3 a.m. in a gas station bathroom while her hands shook, was the detail that broke her. None of them looked afraid. Every face was tilted slightly upward, eyes wide open, completely white. No iris, no pupil, and on every single mouth, the same smile. Identical, perfect, hollow. The case was ruled a mass suicide. File closed. Maya filed the paperwork, turned in her badge lanyard for the weekend, and threw up in the parking garage. That smile followed her home. It followed her into sleep. Her doctor called it acute trauma response, prescribed rest, suggested distance, change of scenery, Maya, somewhere quiet. So Maya packed 2 bags, loaded her camera equipment into her '09 Civic, and drove northeast until the city disappeared behind her. She stopped in Greystone, Vermont. She would later wish she had kept driving. Greystone sat pressed between 2 mountain ridges like something the landscape was trying to swallow. Dense pine forest on 3 sides. One road in, one road out, though locals rarely seemed to use it. The town was small enough that strangers were noticed immediately. It was also small enough that every single house on every single street had something in common. On every porch, a rocking chair, old wood, worn armrests, each one slightly different in age and style, each one empty, each one moving, not violently, just a slow, rhythmic rock, back and forth, the kind of motion that implied weight, that implied someone had just stood up and walked inside. Maya told herself it was the mountain wind. She didn't fully believe it. Her rental was at 13 Birchwood Lane, a 2-story, colonial with peeling white paint, and a porch that groaned under her feet. The landlord, Mrs. Hargrove, was a woman somewhere, north of 70, with pale gray eyes that never quite focused on Maya directly. She handed over the key without smiling, which, in retrospect, Maya would realize was the most comforting thing about her. At the door, Mrs. Hargrove paused, turned back. One thing she said quietly: "The basement door, the one off the kitchen. Don't open it." Maya waited for an explanation, a reason. A story about a broken furnace or a black mold problem or a family of raccoons. Mrs. Hargrove just looked at her. "Not ever," she added. Then she walked to her car and drove away without looking back. Maya hauled her boxes inside and told herself the old woman was eccentric. Small-town Vermont quirk. Nothing more. By 2 in the morning, most of the boxes were unpacked. That's when she heard it, coming from below the kitchen floor. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Slow, deliberate, patient. Mice, Maya told herself. old house, Vermont, normal. She went to bed. She did not sleep. The next morning, Maya stepped onto the porch with coffee and met her neighbor. Derek Holloway was standing in his front yard, 30, maybe 32, tall with a flannel shirt tucked into dark jeans. He wasn't gardening. He wasn't checking his phone. He wasn't doing anything at all. He was simply standing at the edge of his property, facing the road, completely still. "Hey there," Maya called out, stepping off her porch. "I'm Maya. Just moved in yesterday." Derek turned slowly, like the motion required conscious effort. He smiled. It was a perfectly normal smile, friendly even, but something about it sat wrong, like a word spelled correctly that still looks off on the page. His eyes didn't move with it. "We know," he said. Maya glanced instinctively to his left and right. There was no one else in the yard, no one on the street, just Derek. "Great, well, nice to meet you," she said carefully. Derek nodded once and turned back to face the road. Maya walked to town. Patty's Place Diner was the kind of establishment that hadn't changed its decor since 1987. Vinyl, booths the color of old mustard, a laminated menu with items crossed out in pen, a Garth Brooks song playing softly from a radio behind the counter. Maya took a booth by the window and ordered coffee. People watched, and slowly something began to register. The town wasn't empty. There were people on the sidewalks, in the diner, moving between the few small shops on Main Street. Maybe 40 or 50 visible at any given moment. But they were all adults. Every single one. No college kids. No teenagers cutting class. No young couples pushing strollers. No one under the age of, she estimated, 25 at the absolute youngest. Maya was still turning this over in her mind when the waitress appeared. Patty, 50s, warm face, silver hair pulled back, set down a coffee mug and lingered, a half-second longer than necessary. "You're the photographer," she said. Not a question. Maya looked up. "Yeah. How did you—" "Word gets around fast here." Patty's hands, Maya noticed, were trembling slightly as she set down the cream. Not from age, from something else. She leaned in slightly. "Don't take pictures here," she said, barely above a whisper. "Whatever you see, just don't photograph it, please." The bell above the diner door rang. Patty straightened immediately. The color in her face shifted. Sheriff Dale Marsh filled the doorway, broad-shouldered, mid-50s, a badge that caught the morning light. He scanned the diner with the casual authority of a man who had never been questioned in his own town. His eyes landed on Maya. He smiled, wide, warm, welcoming, completely hollow. Maya's coffee cup stopped halfway to her mouth. She knew that smile. She had photographed it on 6 dead faces in a Chicago apartment. "Miss Collister," the sheriff said, crossing toward her with an outstretched hand. "Welcome to Greystone. We're real glad you found us." "We," Maya thought. Again, she shook his hand. It was ice cold. She didn't sleep that night either. 2:47 a.m. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Louder this time. More deliberate. Maya sat up in bed, stared at the ceiling, listened. It wasn't random. It wasn't the irregular scrabbling of an animal. It had a rhythm, even intervals. Like someone knocking, except lower, slower. She got out of bed. Old habit, she grabbed her camera off the nightstand. The hallway was dark. She moved through it without turning on lights, past the bathroom, past the back staircase, into the kitchen. The basement door stood at the far end of the room. Plain wood, old brass handle, a thin gap along the bottom where the door had warped, slightly away from the frame over the years. Maya stopped 6 feet away. The scratching had stopped the moment she entered the kitchen. The silence was worse. She stood very still, waiting. Then, from the other side of the door, a voice. Young, male, calm. The voice of someone in their late teens or early 20s. Maya, just her name. Quiet, conversational, like someone greeting a friend they'd been expecting. Are you going to look at us? The kitchen was 70 degrees. Maya was shaking. Her name, from the basement. From someone who should not know her name, should not be in that basement, should not exist in this house at all. Her hands moved before her brain caught up. Camera on, flash enabled. She crossed the kitchen in 4 steps, crouched at the basement door, and angled the lens through the gap at the bottom, the narrow, warped gap just wide enough to fit the body of the camera. She pressed the shutter. The flash fired. She pulled the camera back and looked at the screen. The image was dark at the edges and blown white in the center from the flash, but the details were unmistakable. The basement stretched back further than it should have, far further than the footprint of the house allowed. And in that impossible space, they stood, dozens of them, human in shape, standing perfectly still in no particular arrangement. Not a line, not a circle, just scattered through the darkness like they had always been there. Like furniture, every face was turned in the same direction, toward the door, toward the camera. Their expressions were identical. That smile, God, that smile, the one she had driven 600 miles to escape. And their eyes, white, completely white. No iris, no pupil, no reflection from the flash. But one of them was different, standing closest to the door. Young, early 20s, Maya's age, maybe younger. He was slightly ahead of the others, separated by 2 or 3 feet of empty space, as though the rest of them had instinctively given him room. He was not looking toward the door like the others. He was looking directly into the lens, precisely, perfectly centered, like he had known exactly where the camera would be, like he had been waiting for her to look. Maya's camera hit the kitchen floor. She was across the room in seconds, back pressed against the far wall, both hands over her mouth. The basement was silent, and then, slowly, softly, from beneath the door, the scratching began again. Maya didn't sleep for the rest of the night. She sat on the kitchen floor, with her back against the refrigerator, camera clutched to her chest, eyes locked on the basement door until gray morning. Light crept through the windows. The scratching had stopped at exactly 3 a.m. dot, not faded, not slowed dot stopped. Like a switch flipped dot by 7 a.m. she was dressed, keys in hand, and walking fast toward Patty's diner. She needed coffee. She needed a normal face. She needed someone to tell her that old Vermont houses made strange sounds, and that what she had photographed was a trick of light and shadow and an overworked, underslept mind. She needed a lie she could believe for one more day. Patty's diner was open but nearly empty. one old man in the corner booth, staring into his coffee. The Garth Brooks radio station playing the same song as yesterday. Maya was almost certain it was. Literally the same. Song. Patty appeared from the kitchen the moment Maya walked in. No greeting. No menu. She slid into the booth across from Maya, reached into her apron pocket, and pressed a folded napkin into Maya's hand under the table. Her eyes never left the window. "Don't read it here," Patty whispered. "Don't let anyone see it." And Maya, she finally looked directly at her. For the first time since they'd met, Patty's eyes were completely steady. No trembling, no fear. Just urgency. "Leave tonight." "Not tomorrow. Tonight, before 11 p.m. After that." The bell above the door rang. Sheriff Marsh walked in. Patty was on her feet in one smooth motion, coffee pot in hand, smile assembled in less than a second. "Morning, Dale. The usual?" The sheriff looked at Maya, smiled that smile. "You sleep all right, Miss Collister?" "Old houses take some getting used to." "Like a rock," Maya said. She kept her hand flat over the napkin in her lap the entire time. Maya read the napkin in her car with the doors locked and the engine running. Patty's handwriting was small and shaking, but legible. They came in. 1,987. Nobody knows from where. 8 of them looked like regular people. Moved into the old Whitmore property on the edge of the woods. Within a year, people in town started changing. Slow at first, then faster. The smiles, the eyes. Dale was the 3rd. My husband was the 7th. They don't kill you. That's the thing nobody understands. They don't need to they W-A-I-T. They get inside your head, inside your sleep, and they W-A-I-T until you stop being you, until you hollow out from the inside, and they can just step in. The basement of your house, that's where they gathered first. In 1987, that's where it started. Mrs. Hargrove has kept that door closed for 38 years because she's the only one left who remembers. What's behind it? Your camera. The flash, they don't like it. I don't know why, but I've seen them flinch from it. Leave tonight. The longer you stay, the more. They're already inside you. Don't trust Derek. Don't trust Dale. And whatever you do, don't let the young one speak to you again. Maya folded the napkin, looked up through the windshield. Derek was standing across the street, watching her car. Not blinking. Maya drove back to 13 Birchwood Lane with one plan. Pack one bag. Drive south. Don't stop until Vermont was 3 states behind her. Simple, clean, survivable. She was throwing clothes into her duffel when she heard the knock. 3 knocks, slow, evenly spaced. Front door. She didn't move. 3 more knocks. Identical rhythm. Identical pressure. Like a metronome. Then Derek's voice, muffled through the door, calm and pleasant. Maya, you should come outside. It's a beautiful morning. Everyone's getting together. Maya stared at the duffel bag on the bed. Everyone's getting together. She thought about the rocking chairs on every porch, the identical smiles, the hollow eyes, the way Derek had said we know, like he was speaking for something much larger than himself. I'm not feeling well, she called out. Maybe later. Silence. 10 seconds. 20. Then right at the door, barely an inch of wood between them. Maya, It wasn't Derek's voice anymore. It was the young man's voice, the one from the basement, the one who had looked directly into her camera lens. "You already looked at us," he said softly. "You already saw. That's all it takes, Maya. That's the door." Maya grabbed her camera, grabbed her keys, grabbed the duffel, and moved to the back of the house. Kitchen window. She could drop into the backyard, circle around to her car from the south side of the house. She had maybe 60 seconds before she stopped at the kitchen window, looked out. The backyard was full of people, 30, 40, maybe more, standing in complete silence facing the house. Men and women of all ages, all of them wearing that smile, all of them with those white, sightless eyes, standing completely still, except for the young man. He was at the back of the crowd, but she could pick him out immediately, the one who was not looking at the house like the others. He was looking directly at the window, directly at her. He raised one hand in a slow, gentle wave, like they were old friends, like this was already over. Maya's hands were shaking, but her mind was going quiet. That was the thing about crime scene work. The worse things got, the more some cold, mechanical part of her brain took over and started making decisions. The flash Patty had written. I've seen them flinch from it. Maya looked at her camera. Then she looked at the crowd in the backyard. Then she looked at the basement door. She crossed the kitchen, pressed her palm flat against the basement door, still ice cold, always ice cold, and took a breath. Patty had said they gathered here first, in 1987, that this was where it started. Maya didn't fully understand what that meant, but she understood this. Whatever was behind that door was the source, and whatever the camera flash did to them, it did it because light, real, sudden, unexpected light interrupted something, some process, some frequency they operated on. She opened the basement door. The cold hit her like a wall, 50 degrees colder than the kitchen. The darkness below the stairs was absolute, not just dark, but dense, like the darkness had weight and texture. She raised her camera. She fired the flash. Once, the reaction was instantaneous. A sound rose from the basement that had no business coming from human throats. Not a scream exactly, more like a frequency, a vibration that she felt in her back teeth and behind her eyes. The darkness seemed to recoil from the light, pulling back from the base of the stairs like a tide going out. And through the kitchen window, Maya saw the crowd in the backyard break. Not run, not scatter, just disconnect. Like puppets with cut strings, 40 people simultaneously tilting, stumbling, losing the rigid posture that had held them in perfect formation. The smiles dropped. The white eyes blinked, and for one disorienting moment, she saw color return to some of them. Irises, pupils, people underneath, confused, blinking, looking around at each other like they'd woken up in the wrong place. The young man at the back of the crowd did not stumble. He stood perfectly still while everyone around him swayed. He looked at Maya through the window. He was not smiling anymore. For the first time, she saw his face without the hollow expression. And what was there instead was something far worse. Patience. Complete, absolute, geological patience. The expression of something that had been waiting for decades and understood that a minor setback was still nothing against the scale of how long it was, willing to wait. He tilted his head slightly. "This isn't over," that tilt said. "You know it isn't." Maya slammed the basement door shut, ran to her car. She made it to the car. She made it out of the driveway. The road through Greystone was empty. Every porch she passed, the rocking chairs were still, completely still for the first time. She hit the town line at 70 miles an hour, crossed it, kept driving an hour south. She pulled into a gas station in Burlington and sat in the parking lot for a long time, hands on the wheel, engine running. She picked up her phone and called the only person she trusted completely, her former supervisor in Chicago, Detective Rosa Vega. It rang 4 times. "Maya, it's been months. You okay?" "No," Maya said. "I need you to look something up for me. Greystone, Vermont. 1987. Something happened there. I need to know what it was officially classified as." And Rosa, she glanced in the rearview mirror. Empty road, dark tree line. "I need you to know where I am, in case I stop answering my phone." A pause. "Maya, you're scaring me." "Good," she said. "You should be a little scared. It means you're paying attention." She pulled out of the gas station and drove south. She didn't turn the radio on. She didn't want music filling the silence. She wanted to hear clearly if anything changed, if the air in the car dropped in temperature, if something shifted in the back seat. She watched the mirror constantly. For 30 miles there was nothing. Then, at the edge of her headlights, she saw a figure standing on the shoulder of the highway, still facing the road. As she passed, she didn't look directly at it. She looked in the rearview mirror instead. The figure turned its head to watch her car go by. Young male, smiling. Maya pressed the accelerator to the floor and didn't lift her foot for 40 miles. Chicago. Maya's apartment. 3rd floor. Deadbolt chain. And a wedge lock she'd bought at a hardware store the day she got back. She had given Detective Vega everything. The photos, the napkin, the name of every person she'd encountered in Greystone. Vega had made calls. The official response was polite and thorough and completely useless. Small town, Maya. Eccentric community. No crime on record. No missing persons. Nothing to investigate. The photos existed. Maya still had them, backed up in 4 separate locations. She had not looked at them again. She had almost convinced herself that distance was enough, that Vermont was far away, that whatever lived in the basement of 13 Birchwood Lane was contained to Greystone and the cold mountain air between those 2 ridges. She had almost convinced herself. Then one morning she passed a coffee shop 2 blocks from her apartment, glanced through the window at the people inside. A man at the counter waiting for his order. Late 20s. Unremarkable. He was looking at his phone. As Maya passed, he looked up. Their eyes met through the glass. He smiled. She knew that smile. She had photographed it in a Chicago apartment 3 years ago. She had seen it on 40 faces in a Vermont backyard. She had seen it on a figure standing on the shoulder of a dark highway. The man in the coffee shop raised his hand slowly. A small wave, like they were old friends. Maya walked faster. Behind her, through the coffee shop window, the man watched her go. Patient, unhurried, smiling.